Hi everyone, my name is Shrikant. Today we are going to learn roles, sharing rules, manual sharing in Salesforce. We'll go through some real-time scenarios to have a better understanding. This is second and final part in the security model series. We have already covered OWD and profiles in the first part. By end of this video, you will be able to understand the concepts of roles, sharing rules, and manual sharing. And you will also understand when and how to choose row level hierarchy, sharing rules, manual sharing for any given scenario. As you already know, there are multiple ways to provide security. As I have mentioned in part 1, there is OWD and profiles, and we also have role hierarchy, sharing rules, and manual sharing. So OWD and profile is mandatory for any of the system. So if you log in, definitely OWD will be having set to private, public read or public read only, and profile will be setting with read, create, edit, delete options as per the requirement. So these are quite mandatory. Then why do we have role hierarchy, sharing rules, and manual sharing? There are some scenarios where OWD and profile cannot fit into the requirement that our client is asking. So we'll see those scenarios and we'll understand how row level hierarchy, sharing rules, and manual sharing will help us. Okay, let's jump into a scenario. We have three different users and the object is set to OWD private and profile set to grid. Throughout this video, we will be seeing the similar users where the same profile will be set for all the users. As soon as OWD is set to private, none of these users can see the records which are owned by others, which means Brand cannot see Betty's and Suchi records, Suchi cannot see Betty and Brand records, Betty cannot see Brand and Suchi records. As profile is set to create, read, edit and delete, each of them can perform read operation, edit operation, delete operation on their own records and they can create new records, except that they cannot see anyone else's records. Now the requirement here is, as you see these red marks, Betty wants to see the records owned by Bran and Suchi because Bran and Suchi are sales reps to Betty. Betty wants to see the records which Bran and Suchi are creating. So in this kind of hierarchy level situation, whenever there is a manager and subordinates kind of situation, whenever manager wants to see data which has been created by their subordinates, we have something called roles. If we implement roles in our org, obviously the supervisor will be able to see the subordinate records. Okay. Role hierarchy settings help supervisor to see and edit the records who are below the hierarchy. Only thing we need to do is we need to set users in role level hierarchy as per our requirement. I will show you how, and we'll also need to grant hierarchical access in OWD. If you have watched the part 1 in this series, I told you to remember about this point. We need to grant access in OWD. Only then this gets applicable. Okay, let's see how we'll create row level hierarchy in this scenario. So I have created three users as per our scenario: manager, Betty the manager, and there are two reps, Bran and Suchi. So I did not assign any roles to these persons, but we have a common profile for all of them. This common profile has account. Will be dealing with account object. So account object I have given all the create operations. Now in sharing settings, on account it is set to private, which means Bran cannot see Betty's and Suchi record, Suchi cannot see Bran and Betty record, Betty cannot see Bran and Suchi record. And if you remember, I was telling this access has to be checked. Only then row level hierarchy sharing will work. If you uncheck this, row level hierarchy will not work. Now we'll just see how they are looking at their records. Now I will open Betty. So if you see, I have logged in with Betty here. So I have three different windows logging with three different people here. I logged in as manager here and I have created a record under Betty name. So manager Betty record. As account is private, she can only see her record. She cannot see Suchi's and Bran's records. Now I will go and open Bran. So if you see, this is Bran's. This is Brand's login, and if you see, I have created one more account under brand name, but he is able to see his record, not Betty's or Suchi's record. Now I will show you the Suchi's credentials. So I log in as Suchi here, and Suchi as a rep, she has created one more record. She can see only her record, but not Brand's and Betty's. Now let's try to create roles for these three people, and then we'll assign those roles to these respective people. How? I will go to my sysadmin access. This is my sysadmin credential which I have opened in Classic. Now I need to search for roles. So currently there are no roles assigned to them and we haven't created any roles. So I will go and create roles, and click on roles. This is how you need to create roles. And do not show this page again and set up profiles and expand all. So for my scenario, I will be creating all the roles under this CEO. So all the roles which I create under here will be reporting to CEO. So I will make it as manager, sales manager, and name will be auto populated. It's all about opportunity cases. So I will leave the default values. Click on save and new. So we have one sales manager. So I will create sales rep. So Betty sales manager and we have two sales rep. So I will have each of them in two different sales rep organizations. Sales rep India and sales rep US. So this sales rep India has to report to sales manager here. So we have sales manager. This sales rep India will be any persons who is part of of role sales rep will be reporting to sales manager. We'll leave the defaults as is and we'll create one more role. And sales rep hyphen US, and it should be reporting to the same manager. Now click on save. Now we have created three roles. We'll see how it is looking like. The hierarchy, we need to understand the hierarchy. So I click on roles, and if you see under sales manager there is sales rep and sales rep US. So we'll assign sales manager with Betty. So click on assign and then get our Betty user and assign it to this person and click on save. So sales manager is being assigned with our Betty. Now we can also go and go to the users and we can change it. I have assigned it there. If I refresh this page, obviously I will be seeing a manager is assigned to this role. So I will assign it from here now. So I will go to brand and I will change the role to sales rep. It's brand, right? So I will make it sales rep US. And we'll go back to the complete list again and then click edit and we'll assign this Suchi user to sales rep India. Okay, now we have our roles properly set and we also have given the grant a hierarchy access in OWD. Now the expectation is if you log in with manager Betty, then you will be able to see brands records and Suchi records. We'll see. Where are you, Betty? Where are you? Yeah, this is Betty. We'll just refresh this. Yeah, see, very easy. This is how you can create it. But this hierarchy will only work with the supervisor. If I go to rep, any of these two reps, it shouldn't show the records. So I will go to Suchi, who is a rep. I will refresh this page and Suchi should be still seeing only her record. Same applies for this cute little boy rep brand. I'll click refresh and it should be still his record. See, role hierarchy is very easy. There are two steps. You need to set up the roles and assign those users to the roles and grant access in the hierarchy in OWD. As simple as that. A role hierarchy is the easiest way to share records between manager and subordinates. Now scenario 2. So if you see, we'll have the same OWD and profile settings. The same profile is set to all the three users, Betty, Brand and Suchi. If Betty wants to see Brand's and Suchi's records, we have roles. What if Brand's all team member records has to be shared with Suchi? As they are in peer level, role cannot help. Now if all Brand team's record has to be shared with Suchi's team, the option is sharing roles. This helps users to share records based on condition. Let's say the records which I have created, where records created by Brand has to be shared with a certain group or to a certain group or to a certain role. In this kind of situations, we always need to go for sharing roles. So in the examples, share records of user of who is of role 1 has to be shared with users who is in role 2. And the other example is share records of the users which are of role 1 to a particular group. Sharing roles usually gets applicable for roles, groups, and roles and subordinates. Okay, now we'll go ahead and create sharing roles. So to do that, first we'll understand why we need to do it. So manager Betty can see Brands and Suchi's record. Now we'll try to create a sharing role where all the records that has been created with this particular role has to be shared with Sales Rep India. Let's say an example of audit kind of things. All the records of Sales Rep US team has to be audited by Sales Rep India, which means all the existing records with Sales Rep US team has been created and all the new records that is about to get created has to be shared with Sales Rep India team. That is something which we'll look into it. So I will go to sharing settings, and if you scroll down you will be seeing the sharing rules. So OWD and sharing rules will be there under sharing settings. So I'll scroll down and we'll go to account because the account object is something which we are working on. Click on new, and this is the interface. So I will say share US records to Indian team. Now we'll leave the default of rule type. We'll need to share which record has to be shared. The records of the role who is sales rep US. So the records which has been created by the users who are part of the sales rep US has to be shared with whom? We are trying to share with the sales reps of Indian team. So we are trying to do this. We'll try to give just the read-only access and we'll click on save. Now, as soon as you do it, sharing rules will be run in the background. It will take a little time to complete it. So rep Bran is part of US team. So this record has to be shared with Suchi here. So Suchi should be able to see his record now in the system because Suchi is part of Indian team and rep is part of US team. So US team records has to be shown up in this Indian team now. So I click on refresh, it should be able to display it now. See, I can see it. But the other way is not true. So if I go here under rep brand, I refresh this page, I cannot see Suchi's record now. We'll have another scenario where a new record has been created from this US team and it should be shown in Indian team now. So I will make it rep brand record 2 and click on save. As soon as I click on save here, sharing rules will run again and then it will be automatically shared with Indian team again. So I will go back to this Suchitra credentials and click on refresh. I should be able to see brand record 2. Sharing rules will work with the existing record and new records as well. This is how you need to work on sharing rules. Now we'll go ahead with scenario 3. Betty can see Brands and Suchi records, but Betty wants to share one of her record to share with Brand and Suchi. So just remember it's only one of her record. If it is not just one record and it is bunch of record and it has to be done every time, then we can go ahead with sharing rules. But if it is just only one record and that too unconditionally and it has to be shared with only a couple of people, then the answer is manual sharing. This helps users to share his or her records to any user manually. There will be a sharing button on the top where clicking on it, it will ask for the username. You can select the username and then you can share it. Examples are share record of mine to my colleague to work on the lead as I will be on leave. If you are in leave, you can share your record to your colleague so that he or she can work on it. Share my record with an expert who can work on the lead to close the deal. Let's say I'm working on an opportunity and it seems it is little bit challenging to me and there is already an expert who has already dealt the same opportunity with the same customer. So we'll just pass it to our team member who is an expert here and then he can work on it. So these are some of the examples for manual sharing. Okay, now we'll see how to do manual sharing. As we already know, manager Betty can see Brand's records and Suchi's record. But Betty's records can be only seen by her but not by her subordinates. But let's say Betty is going on leave and then she wants her subordinates to work on it. How? This is her accounts page where she is having her record and these are the 3 records that has been shared via row level hierarchy. Now she wants to share her manager Betty record to the people, but to do a manual sharing, Lightning it doesn't support that functionality. So to share it manually, we need to go back to Classic and then we need to do it from there. So switch to Classic and then it will take us to the classic view, and we need to select our respective record which we need to share. It will take us to the detail page, and you should be seeing this button. This button will not be visible in Lightning now. Now click on sharing, and if you see, this record is currently shared with only one person, that is herself, as she is owner. Now we'll try to add the other two users and scroll down, and we need to select the users. You can also share it based on roles, and roles are subordinates. So I will select Rep Ran and Rep Suchi, and then select them to the right side window, and then make it just read only and click on save. Now this record should be accessible to these two people but in read only mode. It is the reason is set to manual sharing. Now we'll see whether it is working properly or not. I will go back to Rep Brand and they refresh this, and I should be able to see manage your Betty record as well. See, but it should be only in read only mode. Why? Because we have given the mode as read. So I should not be saying, see, if I see edit button, but I will not have access to change it. Updated and click on save, it shouldn't allow me. See, insufficient access. Now I will go back to Suchi's credentials. Yeah, and now I will refresh the page again to see all my shared records. See, manager Betty's record is part of it. Brand's record were shared based on sharing rules. Manager Betty record has been shared based on manual sharing. So click on Betty, and even this person we shouldn't be able to edit it, and click on save. See, insufficient access. So this is how you can share records manually by giving read access or read and edit access. And one last thing, if OWD is set to public read write, there is no sharing required, because once it is set to public read write, obviously all the people will be able to see all each other's records with read and edit mode. So there is no point of having this manual sharing concept or row level hierarchy concept. I hope you might have understood what is row level hierarchy sharing, manual sharing, and sharing roles. Okay, in summary, if a supervisor wants to see his or her subordinate roles data, then we need to choose roles. So in this way, we can have our subordinates data to be visible to us. If data has to be shared between a person to person, like a single record, then we need to choose for manual sharing. Let's say if sharing has to be done between set of users to set of users, then we need to choose for sharing rules. It can be one way or both the directions. So if this kind of things has to be, sharing rules has the better option. Okay, quiz time. In your org, if OWD is set to private, which means we cannot see the records owned by others, and profile is set to credit, read and delete for every user, I want all the records of rep users who are of the left team to share the records with the another team. So if a set of users records has to be shared with other team, then what is the option? The answer is sharing rule. Quiz time 2. In your org, if OWD is set to private and profile is set to cred, I want all the records of subordinates to be accessed by supervisor. Then what is the security setting you will choose? The answer is row level hierarchy. As soon as you see the hierarchy and they were expecting the data visibility based on the hierarchy, then immediately you need to choose role hierarchy for your requirement. Quiz 3. In your org, if OWD is set to public read only and profile is set to cred, Betty wants to share one of the records with Suchi to edit. So already it's public read only, which means both of them can see all the records, but Betty wants her records to be shared with Suchi to edit it. So in this scenario, what is the option? The answer is manual sharing. As soon as it's just a single record, Betty can actually share it manually. And this is the last question, but it is little tricky. Try to think and answer. In your org, if OWD is set to public read write and profile is set to cred, I want Betty's records to be shared with Suchi and Bran. Here also, Betty wants to share one record with Suchi and Bran. How you will do it? I'm telling you, this is a tricky question. Try to read the question again and answer this. This question is basically a combination of part 1 and part 2 videos. And the answer is, you don't need to share this. Why? Because OWD is set to public read write makes everyone to see and edit each other's records. As profile is also set to CRED and public read write is already set, there is no need of sharing. Already Suchi and Brian will have the access. And that's the wrap up. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. If you have any feedback, comment down below. Practice, practice, practice. Happy learning and bye.